Hello, my name is 𝐊𝐚𝐫𝐸, and this is the lecture from the series of world's best players, and part 2 about Anatoly Karpov, my good friend and true genius. I mentioned in part 1 that Karpov is very, very successful in Russia and internationally in business. Well, he had several public jobs. He was representative of UNESCO in the United Nations. For that reason, he was coming to New York a few times. And he later became the president of the very huge Chernobyl fund in Russia. Well, let me tell you something about respect he has in Russia, and I was absolutely amazed. When on his 50th birthday, that was his 50th birthday was in 2001. When I went there to visit, he invited me to celebrate his 50th birthday. I was truly amazed. In the Bolshoi Theater, it's a very famous theater in Moscow, the biggest probably in Russia. I'm sure it's biggest in Russia, and most respectful. The government celebrated his 50th birthday. And there were representatives of the highest ranks in Russia. There was a huge concert. There were thousands and thousands of people, and it was in the front news. He was very well respected, and people did that not because of his position in politics. No, he didn't have very high position in politics. He was influential member of one of the Russian political parties, but he was never ruling figure there. People respected him for his achievements in chess, of course, in business, and in public jobs. And this was one of the most memorable events in my life I ever attended. And I was in his office a couple of times. His office, well, it's in the center of the Moscow, in a very center, very near to Red Square. His office was, to give you a good idea, his office was, if you guys watched Seinfeld, you remember George Steinbrenner's office, the size of the office. I think his office was just as big, maybe a little bigger. He had constantly visitors, and he couldn't see them on the schedule because demand was absolutely incredible, very high. So I looked at it and I said, well, why would you want to play chess if you have so much going for you in life outside of chess? Well, he smiled, he didn't answer. But then love for chess for him was, of course, it's like a first love. It's never gonna go away. He even now, he's in his 60s, and even now, from time to time, he wants to play competitive chess. I was with Karpov in Las Palmas tournament, and I met him there several days before the tournament. He liked to arrive to the tournament early. That's when he was still a very good competitive player, and it was maybe like 20 years ago. And Vasily Ivanchuk, then a very strong player, he's a very strong player today, and one of the best blitz players in the world. And I remember 2 days before the tournament started, I was in a Karpov suite in the hotel, and he played a match, training match with Ivanchuk in a blitz, 5-minute blitz. The result was astonishing. Karpov won 9 games and drew 1. He won 9.5 out of 10. Vasily Ivanchuk was shocked, and Karpov told him, as a diplomat, he said, well, today you were off your best form, so tomorrow you can come and you can do the same to me. Well, there came tomorrow and was very close to the first day result. And I was absolutely amazed how strong this player was. And I have seen blitz players from all around the world, some of the very top blitz players. What he had, though, going against him in a blitz game, sometimes very close in the end of the game, he would make terrible blunder, and that will destroy whole game. But strength was there. I was absolutely amazed. Karpov was also very, very competitive player in any game he would play. I remember when I was spending some time with him, I told him about the game of backgammon. So he picked the backgammon and he started to play backgammon, not for money, of course. And when he played, and if he was losing to me, he was extremely mad, and he was getting better and better. And when I saw him next time, in a matter of months, he was very, very good player already. He learned from books, from articles, and from different magazines. He learned the game. He was very competitive. He was one of the best players in Russia in a very popular Russian card game. And he was playing in a championship of Russia in that game. Well, this is something maybe we won't see in many publications, some parts of him, but he was absolutely, truly amazing personality. So we were very, very good friends, and I remember in early 80s, well, maybe in mid-80s, Karpov, I made a video with him, chess video, instructional video, and later he endorsed, made an endorsement of 2 of my opening books, Chess Opening, Explained for White and Black. And he was impressed, but that's not enough to make an endorsement. And he made this endorsement. And even today, he is very, very busy public figure. From time to time, I speak to him, and we're remaining in very good terms. Let me show you one game played by Karpov in 1994 against Topalov. And again, that's the first game we saw in part 1 was in 1994 in Dos Hermanas in a Spanish tournament. This one also was played in Spain, and it was in Linares. Actually, I have to mention Karpov traveled so frequently to Spain that he spoke Spanish fluently, as well as Russian, German, and English. He was absolutely incredible in languages. He speaks almost every one of the major languages. Here is the game Karpov versus Topalov in Linares. C4, C5, knight F3, cd, knight takes d4, e6, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, bishop c5, knight b3, bishop e7, knight c3. And again, I bring this game purposely to show his very, very sophisticated approach to positional play and his incredible ability in playing sparkling combinations. This is very good example of it. So after knight c3, both sides castled. d6, and here Karpov played bishop f4 with very interesting idea. First of all, idea is simply go queen d2 and rook d1, put pressure on d6. Move that he was expecting was the move Topalov played, knight h5. And here, I don't know how many players, even including top players, would play here bishop f4 with the idea of e3. This is the last move that will come to anyone's mind. He is attacking h5 knight, forcing black to take on f4 because no one wants to go back with a knight and give white big space advantage by playing queen d2 and rook d1. Knight takes f4 and ef. White gave up two bishops and they have double pawns. But what else they have? They can put rooks on e and d file quickly and have tremendous pressure on black's position. This position, in my opinion and in the opinion of Rybka, is much better for white. Black also is going to have very big difficulties develop their c8 bishop to b7 because of bishop on g2. So bishop d7 was played, queen d2, queen b8. It's obvious that black is going for a6 and b5. Rook fe1, intending f5. So if black goes a6, f5 is very strong. And if pawn takes, then bishop takes c6, winning the bishop on e7. g6 was played. Now h4. This is very sophisticated move. All white wants to do to play h5, take on g6. Actually, that's what happened. Let's go on. You will see the idea of this move. Now, h takes g, h takes g, and now black's king position is very vulnerable. At some point, if white goes f5 and black is going to have to take with the g pawn, king will be very open. Or there may be some other hidden possibilities. So here is what happened. Knight c5. And you will see how this exchange of h pawns played decisive role in the game. Knight has to be taken. Queen takes d7 and rook c8. And here is the decisive shot. Rook takes e6, and weakness of g6 pawn and absence of h7 pawn is very, very painful for black. Rook a7. Well, if pawn takes on e6, it's almost the same except white is going to have an extra tempo. So after rook a7, rook takes g6, pawn takes g6, king g7, bishop takes c6. Now you see white is down only an exchange. They have two pawns, and there is an absolutely deadly threat of, for example, on any move like b4 or b takes c, there is absolutely deadly threat of bishop e4 and pawn on g6. That one I mentioned you that became very weak after exchanging of h-pawn is deadly. So in this position, black is already totally lost. Rook d8 was played. Now bishop e4 will be met by rook d6. C takes b. Bishop f6. Knight e4. Bishop d4. Pawn takes a6. After queen b6, another truly amazing move, foreseeing position like 10 moves ahead. Rook d1, queen takes a6, and rook takes d4. You will see in this position, white has minor piece for every one of black's rooks. And black is in a lot of trouble. Black is totally lost, actually. Queen f6, king g8, queen g6. Well, here, white has multiple ways to win this game. No checkmate, but ways to win this game. Because all they can do, get some of the material back, and you will see that black is totally hopeless. And that's what happened actually. Queen e5 check, king g8, knight f6 check, king f7, bishop e8. Of course, Karpov didn't calculate all of it. He just intuitively knew that white is going to have here winning continuation, one way or the other. King f8, queen takes c5, queen d6, queen takes a7, queen takes f6, and what do we have now? Black survived immediate attack on the king, but white has bishop and 5 pawns versus rook. It's totally hopeless, of course. Here, Topalov missed very interesting chance. In this position, instead of taking the knight on f6, he could have played. That wouldn't have saved him, but he had a chance for rook d1 check, king h2. He could have played that. And now rook h1 check. White cannot take this rook, because then after queen d1 check, queen h1, and it's a forced stalemate. White must take the queen, and it's a stalemate. Although I have to notice here, point here, that white still would have been winning after rook h1 check, king g2. Rook g1 check, king h3. This is all Rybka talking. Rook h1, queen g4. And now queen has to take on f6. And after bishop h5, queen has to take on f6. And after pawn f5, actually, eventually black is losing anyway. But this was good practical chance which was missed by Topalov. What he did, he took on f6, and after bishop h5, there is no practical chance or any chance of any kind. b3 position is totally lost. King g2, followed by bishop f3, and black simply resigned. If you saw the game, I don't think anyone could predict that it was played by Karpov. Here it comes very well-known player with a dull style, boring chess, and here is the game he produced in a late stage of his career. I think it's truly amazing.